Hi, Michelle, and thank you for agreeing for this interview and giving us the opportunity to bring to light the workings of the Dignity Institute and celebrating the World Youth Skill Day with us. Now, since we have so much to talk about in this limited time, we have curated certain questions that would help us navigate this interview easily. So, if it's okay, can I ask my first question?
Absolutely. And thank you for having me today.
The pleasure is all ours. Okay, so my first question is, what is the significance of celebrating the World Youth Skill Day?
For us, it's to draw attention to the importance of equipping youth with the skills they need to succeed and lift them out of poverty. We work with youth who are at risk often, and they come from families that are sometimes single head of household families or families that have experienced some difficulties. So we believe that by giving them interpersonal skills, communication skills, decision-making skills, these are the ways that we can help them help themselves position themselves for success in college, vocational school, entrepreneurialism, or a career.
That's amazing. That's really great. And I would like to know, how significant are these skills in today's competitive world?
They are extremely significant. In fact, communication skills, which is our focus, communication and interpersonal skills, they are the number one skill that employers are asking for today. They're finding that people are not coming in the door with these skills. There's been a focus on what are termed hard skills or technical skills for the past 20, 30, 40 years. And what people have identified as soft skills, which are the communication and interpersonal skills, are now being reframed and called power skills. People are starting to see how essential these skills are, that it's easier to teach the technical skills, but if the people skills aren't inherent in the person, it is difficult for them to be members of a team. It is difficult for them to succeed in an organization, difficult to provide customer service, deal with clients, and that sort of thing.
And how has this definition of skills changed after the Covert Era?
I think the one difference for us, again, is the change from the hard skills to what we're called the soft skills, and now reframed as power skills. That's one way, but it's also the importance has changed because the millennials and Generation Z and the new employees who are coming after that, they want to get ahead. They're not happy with being in a stagnant career. And one of the ways that employers can retain this group is to constantly be educating them, building their skill sets, and giving them more internal opportunities for growth.
And what kind of role an educational institute plays in making sure that an individual has these set of skills? And is it necessary? What difference have you seen in a person who is not a graduate and in a person who is a graduate, has some fancy degrees, when it comes to skills?
So I think it's an interesting question. So I just want to give you kind of a foundation of what we do. Through our nonprofit, the Dignity Institute, we provide training on these interpersonal skills through a program we call Smart Conversations. And we do this through our partner organizations that serve youth. We create and customize curriculum for a variety of programs. So our work is done mainly through after-school and enrichment programming. And to answer your question, we see a huge need for bringing these skills into schools at a much younger age. We think we can start, because if I can back up a second, at the core of being able to talk to each other is learning. And these skills really teach you how to learn, and they create a love of learning, which begins with curiosity. And that's when youth are most curious, is when they're very young. They're looking, I'm around children, and even when they're 3 or 4 years old, they're looking at bugs and they're looking at the ground and they're asking why. And that's the time we think, I mean, there's always a good time to do it, but we think in viewing the schools when they're at a very young age and getting them into schools is a way for them to, by the time they get through what we call high school in our country, just before college, by the time they get to college, they really have a good command of these skills, and then that way they can build relationships with their professors, and they can build relationships throughout their internships. And then when it's time for them to graduate and get a job, they've already developed these networks, and they're not starting at square one with trying to learn the skills.
That is something very important you mentioned here, that it should start at such a basic level. But then what about the students who did not have such a good schools, who did not have the opportunity to go there and learn all of these skills? So does it really become hard for them? And so does that mean that they have to take up various courses just to get better at the game, like do an MBA or do a PhD, or what is it?
I think that's a great point. And we find that we mainly serve the Black and Brown communities, which oftentimes are in communities where the public schools, some of them are very, very good, but some of the public schools leave a lot to be desired. They may have low graduation rates, and they don't have a lot of these enrichment programs. So I think, yes, they're at a disadvantage if they're not getting these skills early enough. And teachers do try to provide the skills, but they don't have a core curriculum that includes it, right? It's not a formal curriculum. It's, say please and thank you, and here's how to ask a question, and now we're all going to, we're going to play this telephone game and teach listening. But it's sort of inserted, it's not embedded in the curriculum. So yes, I think if youth do not have access, then they're playing a bit of catch up. And I do think that creates a situation where it's more difficult. It's more difficult to succeed because, again, even if you think about getting a recommendation letter from your teacher from high school to go into college, if you haven't built up a relationship with that teacher, and that teacher doesn't really know you well because you haven't spent the time trying to get that know this person, or maybe you've had some bad experiences in school, well, how do you get that recommendation now? It may be very hard to even ask for a recommendation because you have not built that relationship. And then on it goes when it's time to enter college and perhaps go after a master's degree or an MBA and then a PhD degree. We're not working in isolation. We work together collectively in teams. That's how organizations work. So unless you're going to be a scientist who is working independently on something, which I don't see that there's that much, that kind of work. People work in groups and teams to get things done. It's more efficient. It's more efficient for the organization, and it increases any training that organizations and schools provide, increases the ROI exponentially. In fact, I have a quote for you. The MIT Mass Institute of Technology Sloan School, which is the business school, they have done a study where power skills, people who have the power skills, the interpersonal skills, they can make decisions, they have critical thinking skills, etc., it results in a 250% ROI for the organization. So you may not even, as a youth, you may not even get the opportunity to get a position because they know this. They know these skills lead to that. So you have to get into an organization. If you don't get this as a young person, you have to get into an organization that's willing to train you.
Oh, that was so enlightening, and that kind of gave me the confidence. I've done good things in life. I really do not have to worry. I'm going good. So, Michele, what I'd like to know what are the few must-have skills that you have, that you think, based on your experiences with the Dignity Institute. I'm sorry.
Yes. Yes. I think in addition to having the love of learning, I think is so important. And that starts with reading to children. When you read to children, if they can develop a love of story and they can develop an interest in anything, you know, whether it's science or math or writing or English, once they have the love of learning and they're able to ask questions and learn from that, I think that's key. I think it's at the core is curiosity and a love of learning. I think once you get toward school, you have to have some basic organizational skills. If you go to school and you're given homework and you're constantly late with it, or you don't know how to set up a little space for yourself where you can do some homework, and when you get homework and you don't understand it, you don't have access to somebody who can help you do that homework, you're at a big disadvantage. So asking for help is one thing. Feeling confident, empowered enough to ask for help, having organizational and time management skills. It seems like we're all equipped with that, and we're not. We're not. I've worked at a school for youth who, it was kind of like in our country, it was like an equivalent to high school. And they missed out on a lot of those basic time management, organizational skills. And then of course, some people just have extra challenges because they might have a learning disability. So I think those are core: being able to get somewhere at time, be organized, critical thinking. If I do this, what are the ramifications? What are the cause and what are the possible results? So being able to see that, being able to make decisions. I think basic mathematics, we have a lot of tools today that can help us with mathematics, but a basic understanding of mathematics. You must, of course, I'm biased because my specialty is communication skills. You must be able to write. I don't see how anyone could get to the top of their profession without being able to write, or without the ability to present their ideas and not be afraid to speak in front of an audience. I have seen people who fail and are unable to proceed in their career because they're lacking those two skills. Also, persuasion. Are they able to persuade others to listen to their ideas and accept their ideas? And one of the biggest is leadership, which really combine all of those skills. You have to be able to make decisions. You have to be able to persuade people. You have to be able to be the kind of leader that helps people learn and helps people grow. Because when that happens, then you have an organization that will function very smoothly.
So it all boils down to constant learning and being open to experiences and
Yes.
being open to change as well. If you feel that there's something that you should discard about your personality, you should be able to accept it. You should be able to learn about it and change it at the end.
Yes. And I also want to add one other thing, if I may. Cultural competence. We are a global society. And what works in one country doesn't work in another. Here in the US, we're very centered around the United States and the American way of life. And even the way we speak with people, the way we attempt to persuade, the way we communicate, even eye contact. Some people from other countries think we're drilling, into them, and that it's telling us we gain information from that, but other people, they find that threatening or aggressive. So I think a basic cultural competence of, looking at people, asking people questions, and I'm going to put in their travel. If it's possible, when you lift youth out of poverty, then they have some funding and some money where they might be able to travel to different countries and learn how others live. And to me, that is a key in life, is to learning how other people live, what lifestyles are, what's important, what are their values. finding out their own core values and what are other things people value, because then you get a broader and broader awareness of how you can be with other people.
Absolutely correct, Michelle. Absolutely correct. It's yes, I feel just by meeting people you can learn so much, and that can sometimes even overpower the amount of knowledge you get by just reading, because real life experiences, they are like nobody can beat it. So yeah, maybe that's the reason why people want a career abroad, or maybe every second person I meet, they are like, I like to travel, I like to meet new people.
Right. And then and that goes back to the communication skills.
Yeah.
Right. If I have the confidence, maybe I don't have to speak the language fluently, but I learned please, thank you, excuse me, and I learned some basics. If I have the confidence and I have the interpersonal skills that I've built, then I could go to another country and not be afraid.
Exactly, even if there is nothing common in the language between you and that country. So yeah, and I have experienced this firsthand. That's the reason I'm able to relate to it so much, and it was amazing.
Yeah.
So Michelle, if there's something that a message that you'd like to give to the youth,
I would say if I were to give a message to you, it would be find out what's important to you, learn about yourself, and this starts very, very early, and dig into those things. If you like to draw, dig into that. Don't worry about what other people are saying. If you're fascinated by space, dig into that. Find a program, find something, because you're going to have some natural attractions to things that you're just going to be very good at and like, because your passions start coming out early. That's one. Then find out your core values. What is important to me? Is it family? Is it money? Is it integrity? Is it trust? What's important to me in my life? Because once you figure that out, you can overlay that on friendships. You can overlay that on jobs. You can overlay that on anything in your life, and that will keep you focused and on, for you, a right path, whatever that path is. And lastly, learn how to learn and love learning. And that's about being curious, not making assumptions, asking questions, and listening to others at a really deep level, and listening to understand them, not to reply, but to understand what the other person is trying to communicate so that you receive their message clearly. And lastly, have fun, whether that's travel. Don't put too much stress on yourself. Have fun, go out and do things you enjoy, find people you enjoy being with, who feed your self-esteem, who make you feel good, and also who make you feel safe. I think those are really important things.
I can only thank you for this amazingly informative interview, and I felt like I was in a personal TED talk. So
Me too.
And I felt very privileged for some time, thinking that it's a personal TED talk just for me exclusively. But unfortunately, it's going out.
Amrisha, it's my pleasure. You're quite lovely, and I could see from your expressions you resonated with a lot of what we spoke about.
Yes, I completely, because the part that you were explaining, I have literally gone through each and every part of it, so I could really relate to it on a very, very deep levels. And I was just reading about active listening as well. So
yes.
Yeah, so that's what. And so yes, Michelle, thank you so much for agreeing for this interview and really helping the youth and helping us as well.
Well, thank you so much. I would love to stay in touch, and I appreciate this opportunity.